In this video, I want to talk about the best types of soft plastics to use when using them under a popping cork. Now, when I say types of soft plastics, I don't mean any specific brand or any specific style, but what it really comes down to is what the material is actually made out of and the buoyancy of the lure. What I found is that plastic material that is more buoyant tends to have a better presentation in the water. And presentation is key with soft plastic lures. So you can use, artificial jerk shads, paddletails, artificial shrimp. They all work really well underneath a popping cork, but the buoyancy of those lures is going to play a huge role in how effective they are. So I have some underwater footage here that I want to share of some different types of soft plastics as far as what material they're made out of and how they actually look underwater. So first up here I have the ZMan scented shrimps. What they are, their material is naturally buoyant. If you toss it in the water with no hook on it, no weight on it, it's just going to sit there on the surface. It floats. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this actually acts underwater. I have it rigged up on a popping cork here. As you pop it through the water, it has a good action. And then when it sits at rest, go ahead and pause it here when it stops. As you can see there, when it's sitting at rest, it just sits there either horizontally or slightly at an angle, as opposed to just hanging there straight up and down. You don't want your bait to be completely settled on the bottom, especially if there's a lot of structure there. But if you're fishing flat sandy bottom, it's okay to let your bait settle down to the bottom. But if you want to fish that bait suspended just above the surface of whatever structure you're fishing, a buoyant bait is going to help out a ton. So again, as you can see there, pop it through the water. When it settles down, it just pretty much just sits there because of the buoyancy of the plastic. The jig head, good example right there. I'll go ahead and pause it. The jig head keeps the bait down on the bottom or down in the water column, but the buoyancy of the lure is what helps keep that bait either in line or somewhat up at an angle like so. Alright, so now I've switched over to a bait that doesn't have as much buoyancy as that other bait that I just showed you, that ZMan bait. This is the DOA Shrimp. Go ahead and show you what it looks like underneath a popping cork here. You can see as it comes to settle down underneath that popping cork right there, notice how the bait is hanging straight up and down. Doesn't look natural at all. If I was a fish, I probably wouldn't go after that just because it's sort of just dangling there, doesn't have a natural appearance to it. So that's really the biggest difference when using a bait that's a little bit more buoyant versus a bait that is not very buoyant and will just hang straight off of that line and not look natural. So I'll go ahead and keep taking a look here just to show you. The action is really good. As it falls sort of at a horizontal level, goes down. Then when it stops, it just sort of hangs there. So if I was using that bait, I would use it more for, a constant retrieve, few quick pops, let it settle down, and just before it comes to complete rest, I would keep popping it so it's not just dangling there. If you want to go with a slower presentation, that's when I would go with the baits that are a little bit more buoyant. Now next up I have the Chase Baits Flick Prawn, which is made out of what they call TPE. The Voodoo Shrimp, Savage Gear, Chase Baits, they all make their lures out of this very similar material, and it's buoyant. If you take the hook off, the jig off, everything off of the bait, throw it into the water, it's just going to float there on the surface. So let's go ahead and take a look at this one as it goes through the water. So you can see it's a little bit more stiffer of a bait, but as it settles down to the bottom, as you can see right there, as it settles down, it's not dangling from the line, it's sitting in a horizontal position, so more of a natural suspended position. Now last one I have here is a Gulp shrimp. Gulp material, it's not buoyant at all. You toss it in the water, it's going to sink straight down to the bottom. So let's go ahead and look here what it looks like. You can see probably the worst action out of all of them. It sort of helicopters in the water, and then when it comes to rest there, you can see it's hanging straight up and down just like that DOA shrimp was. But the thing about Gulp is the scent sort of overrides the action. The scent is so strong with Gulp products that the action can be pretty poor, but that scent's there, especially for redfish and black drum, works really well, and also flounder. I've casted gulp baits out and just let them sit on the bottom and fish come by and pick them up just because of the scent. So if you're fishing dirty water, an area where there's a lot of redfish, black drum, a gulp bait can be good, even though the action's pretty bad and it doesn't have that buoyancy of other baits. So hopefully this video can help you out just by being able to see how these lures react underwater based on what they're actually made out of. The more buoyant lures, in my opinion, look more natural, and if you're going with a more slower presentation, I would definitely go with those more buoyant lures because they're going to sit more naturally when they're suspended. If you're letting that popping cork sit there for a good amount of time before you start popping it again, I would go with baits that have that more buoyant material. Now, if you're fishing pretty fast with your popping cork, the fish are very active, heavier weight, where you're popping it, that popping cork is settling, that bait settles down to the bottom. As soon as it settles down, you start retrieving it again. Then those baits that sort of hang there, like the Gulp shrimp or the DOA shrimp, can work out really good. So really depends on the situation, how fast you're fishing, and also the conditions. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down below. Also, I'd like to know your feedback. What's your favorite lure to use under a popping cork? So definitely let us know. If you are new to Salt Strong, we are the largest online fishing club for saltwater anglers, and we guarantee you two things. Number one, you'll start catching more fish in less time. And number two, you will save a ton of money on your favorite tackle and gear with discounts available exclusively for our members. To learn more, go to saltstrong.com and we'll see you there.
There's something about the water that'll give you peace, all by yourself or with your family. Live Salt Strong and wear the line tonight.